The Battle of Stalingrad was without any doubt one of the most important battles fought during World War II and in the whole 20th century. This was, as it is very often said, the turning point of the war on the Eastern Front. During the battle, both sides used several different assets in order to overcome their enemy. One of such assets were snipers, elite sharpshooters who were supposed to target enemy troops, enemy officers, and to never make them comfortable behind their lines. Hello, this is Michel Sorbet and this is a new episode of Wojennik TV. Today I'd like to invite you to the Eastern Front of World War II and to the Battle of Stalingrad, without any doubt one of the most important battles fought during this conflict. I'd like to present you the review of a game released in 2020 by Draco Ideas under the name of Scope Stalingrad. Scope Stalingrad is a game designed by Juan Nacher, which is for 2 players, but which can also be played in a group of 3 or 4 people. The time of play of this game is somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes, and the minimum age of the player is 12 or higher. So this is not a big-scale war game in which you will find a lot of components, a lot of counters, or a map with an hexagonal grid. You'll find only 2 decks of cards, one for each player, a German deck of cards and a Soviet deck of cards. Each of those decks will be similar to one to the other, containing the same types of units. In the game, our main objective will be to take control of a squad of elite sharpshooters fighting in Stalingrad during World War II and to search for and to kill enemy snipers. We can win the game by eliminating the enemy snipers which are on the battlefield or by gathering a certain amount of points, because during the game we will be shooting not only at sharpshooters, we will be shooting also at different targets such as officers, scouts, infantrymen or others. The game, as you can see, is a small-scale war game, so this is a title which you can easily explain and play under 30 minutes, which for a war game is an extremely interesting time. During this video, I'd like to present you the game, I'd like to show you how it looks. Then I'd like to briefly explain how it works, both using the standard as well as the advanced rules. And at the end, as usually, I'd like to give you my final thoughts concerning this title. I'd like to tell you what I liked in it, but what I also found can be weaker points of this design. So now let's take a look at how Scope Stalingrad looks and how it works. Here are all the elements which are part of Scope Stalingrad. As you can see, the game is sold in a small box in which we can find 2 decks of cards, one for the Soviet player, one for the German player, and a small rulebook. Now this rulebook is a 2-language rulebook in rules both in Spanish as well as in English. The first part is the Spanish one and the second one is the English, depicting first of all the components, explaining how the game will be set, and then also how the game works in its basic mode, how we can also create different kinds of scenarios, including thematic scenarios, and then how to play the game using advanced rules. The game, in a brief summary, is focused on sharpshooter duels in Stalingrad. So in both decks we will find sharpshooter cards, but not only them. Both decks are similar. They include the same types of cards, but they have different artwork and obviously different colors. Now, the first kind of card which we can find in such a deck is Empty Area, as you can see, depicting destroyed streets of Stalingrad. Those obviously will grant no points if discovered. They will take place because obviously our enemies are not everywhere. They can be everywhere, but they will be not. Secondly, we have special kinds of units, and each unit has two information on them. It has the symbol indicating the type of unit, and then it has a value ranging from 0 to 2 to 3, indicating the value of such a unit if killed. If you manage to kill such a unit, you will score the number of points indicated on the card removed from the battlefield. So we have mortar units, we have officers, we have infantry, we have machine guns, we have scouts, decoys, and finally we have sniper units, which will be our main asset used to track and to kill enemy troops. We have also a special card which I will explain in a few moments. Now, the first thing that we should do before the game starts is to choose the type of scenario. We can choose from different kinds of scenarios, but in the basic game and also in the advanced game, we will be choosing the type of battlefield, or rather the size of the battlefield. This will be the most important decision before the game starts, because depending on the range of the battle, depending on the size of the battlefield, we will be using a different number of cards. Now, as you can see, the smallest battlefield is 4-on-3, which means that we will be using 12 cards. We'll be using 2 sniper units and 1 decoy, 1 officer, 1 scout, 1 mortar, 1 machine gun, 1 infantry unit, and 4 empty area cards. But if we decide to play a bigger battle, for instance, an open battle 6x3, we will be using a significantly higher amount of cards. Now, what is important is also that with the increasing number of cards, the number of objective points will increase, because in the game we can win in 2 ways. Firstly, we can eliminate all the enemy sharpshooters, which instantly grants us victory. Secondly, we can kill enemy units and score a certain amount of points. So even if an opponent still has a sniper somewhere hidden on his side, we can still win the game if we manage to kill units whose cumulated objective points are equal or higher than the threshold. So after choosing this, the size of the battlefield, each player will have a certain number of cards in his hand. And when having those cards, then a player will have to decide how to place those cards in his side on the battlefield. Because now we will create such a battlefield, and it's up to the player where he wants to place his units. Each unit will be placed face down so that our opponent cannot see what exactly unit are we placing at each location. As you can see, the backside of each card is the same. So our opponent doesn't know if a card placed in a given location represents a sniper or is it something else. After placing those units, our opponent will do the same thing, creating his own battlefield on his own side of the board. The front line will be the place where the cards of different colors will be touching one another, and after placing all the cards on both sides, we will be ready to start playing. During our turn in the basic mode, we have only 2 options, because we will do only one action, and we will be choosing from moving our units or searching and eventually shooting at enemy units. Moving units means that we will choose one of the quadrants on our side of the battlefield, meaning 4 cards touching one another, and we can take those cards and rearrange them the way we want. So if, for instance, I want to change the place where my sniper was located, for instance, say he was here, I want him to move here, we can make such a rearrangement using the move action. After doing so, our turn ends and it's up to our opponent to play his or her turn. The second action available during our turn is to search enemy cards. We can look at one enemy card, uncover it, and now we can make a decision. We can either place this card where it was, leave it alone. If it is an empty area, we will obviously only do it because we cannot destroy empty area cards. But if this is something else, for instance, a machine gun unit, we can decide to shoot at it. If we shoot at a unit, we destroy it instantly. We take it to our side of the battlefield, scoring a number of objective points in accordance to the number of points printed on the card. We replace the card to fill the empty spot by an empty city card, but additionally, we have to indicate with the bank card the quadrant from which the shot has been taken. So we can shoot with our sharpshooters, but when we do so, we have to indicate from where the shot came from. And obviously, we won't be showing the exact location. So if I shot with this sharpshooter, I'll have to indicate one of the quadrants which this card is a part of. So for instance, I can place my bank card here. I can place it here, here, or here, because in each of those four cases, the card where the sniper actually is part of the quadrant indicated. So this gives a hint to our opponent where our sniper or where one of my snipers is located. And when the turn comes to him, he has the option of shooting at one of those cards. So he can take a look at one of those cards and he can decide to shoot at it, or he can put it back. So shooting at enemy units means that you have to uncover in some way, to give to your opponent in some way a hint where your shooter which took the shot is located. When the turn returns to you, the card is obviously removed, and your opponent, if for instance trying to locate your sniper didn't succeed, will still know that among those four cards your sniper is somewhere. So during your turn you will maybe use the move action in order to move your sniper away from the danger zone, for instance moving four cards, again reducing the probability of finding your sharpshooter by your opponent. Things start to become a little bit more complicated when using advanced rules, because using advanced rules, each of the other units apart from the sharpshooter has some special abilities. And for instance, the officer enables you to take an extra action, enabling you to make two actions during your turn. The mortar can be used in order to attack an enemy unit. Scout can help you to look at two at not one card at one moment. Infantry can infiltrate enemy cards. You can use an infantry unit in order to move to the side of the battlefield which normally is inaccessible to other units, etc. So when using the advanced rules, each of the cards worth a certain number of objective points receives additional capacities, which makes the game significantly more interesting and also which gives you a lot more options than in the basic rules. Now, an interesting card which is also present in the basic mode is the decoy card, because as I mentioned earlier, when looking at an enemy card, you can either replace it without shooting at it or shoot at it and remove it from the battlefield. When you look at a decoy card, you have to take a shot at it, even though the card is instantly replaced. So when finding a decoy, you will give up your position of your sniper, obviously, of course, placing the bank cards on a quadrant, not giving the exact location, but still giving an opponent a hint where your sniper is located, even though this was only a decoy. So this card is used both in the basic as well as in the advanced mode, which is quite interesting. And those are basically it, all the rules which are used during the play of Scope Stalingrad. Now let me invite you to the final part of this video, during which I'd like to tell you what I liked in this game, what I find are the strong but also the weaker points of this title. Looking at Scope Stalingrad, one of the things which instantly comes to our mind is the time of play. This is a very short game, both to explain, both to play, even to set it up and to put back everything into the box. And when looking at such short games, very often we can ask a question: is this really a war game? War games tend to be very long, war games tend to be complicated. And many war games, which are meant to be war games, which are very short, in fact are games which are only war games on paper. They have some military connotations, they have some war game theme in them, but in fact they are something else. And if we were to look for filler war games, there wouldn't be a lot of them. Scope Stalingrad is a game which is, in my opinion, a war game because it has both the war game theme as well as some war game mechanics which make it, in my opinion, a true war game. So it is part of a very small family of war game fillers. And from this point of view, it is instantly a game which becomes interesting because wargamers want such games. They need such games very often when they do not have a lot of time, but they do want to play something which is something close to their subject of interest. They will be looking for such titles. And from this point of view, Scope Stalingrad is an extremely interesting design, a thing that we all wargamers need. When judging this product from the outer layer point of view concerning the components, this is a game which is really minimalistic because you receive a small box in which you have only 2 decks of cards on which you have absolutely no text, only some numbers indicating their value and the type of unit, and that's it. So it's extremely minimalistic, but at the same time the components that you receive are quite climatic, and I do enjoy the pictures which are on them because looking at them I instantly think of World War II. I also instantly think of the Battle of Stalingrad, especially after seeing some movies such as Enemy at the Gates, which depict the Battle of Stalingrad from the sharpshooters perspective. So the quality of the components is just okay. It's not something extremely high, it's just okay. With one small exception, but I will be talking about it a little bit more. I will be talking about it in some time. The second thing, or the third thing, which I really enjoy in Scope Stalingrad is the fact that in this small box, among those cards, we really receive a lot of variety because we have both the basic rules as well as the advanced ones. We have different scenarios. We have the possibility to play the game in a group of 3-4 players. We can create our own scenarios. We can also decide to mix the cards in a combination that we want to mix them. We can create battlefields of different sizes. So a lot of variety, a lot of different options. The game in the standard mode, in which you receive only the option of moving or scouting and maybe shooting, is very simplistic. It's very minimalistic, but at the same time, although it reminds a memory game, it is a game in which you still will be taking a lot of decisions. You will be deciding if you want to shoot at an unveiled officer, or you want to let him flee and try and wait for the moment when you discover a sharpshooter. You will bluff moving your units. Sometimes you will try to escape with your sniper. Sometimes you will leave him where he was, and this all works very well. All those decisions, although quick to take, although interesting, do not take a lot of time, and they make the game interesting. The different playing modes also enhance the replay value because you can play different kinds of battles, bigger ones, smaller ones, involving more complicated rules with advanced units, or maybe the simple ones if you want to introduce the game to someone. I like also the fact that during the game you will be having a lot of decisions. You will be trying to bluff your opponent, you will try to overthink your opponent, and those are all interesting elements. Additionally, all those components and all those additional rules concerning different kinds of units are well linked to the theme, which as I said a few moments ago, makes the game a real war game, because the rules and the mechanics are well linked to the theme, and playing this game really makes you feel being in Stalingrad and fighting an epic battle between sharpshooters. So this game is quite climatic, and I was really surprised by it, because I wasn't expecting that the game will be so climatic that it is. So all those things, with of course a very interesting time of play, are the things which I really like in the game. There are unfortunately some things which I like less. The first one concerns the components which we receive. Now, playing the base game is really minimalistic, is really simple, but if you want to try the advanced mode, and I strongly encourage you to do so, you will find yourself in a situation where you have a lot of different unit types, and each of them works differently, having different capacities. In order to understand how those capacities work, you have to constantly look into the rulebook. I think that maybe it would be a good idea to include some player aid cards, or one player aid card, so that players could instantly look at this card and know how different units work. Maybe an even better idea was to print on the cards themselves the information about how they work, because we have a lot of free space on those cards. So I absolutely do not see why those cards do not have such information. Maybe because this is an edition with the Spanish and English version and there wouldn't be enough space, but still a player aid card with the English explanation and the Spanish one on the other side would be sufficient. The second thing, which in my opinion is really a big problem of Scope Stalingrad, is the fact that this game is very inconvenient to play. It's very uncomfortable, because what will take the most time during this game will be to try to remember and constantly look into your own cards, verifying where what unit is placed. So you will constantly look at where your units are in order to remember where different types of assets are present. This is very inconvenient, and if the game had a different way of putting your elements, it would be much more pleasant to play. For instance, in my opinion, this game would absolutely shine as a block game. Having this not in the form of cards but blocks would be so much better. You'd instantly see where your units are. You'd instantly see that you have an officer on the last rank, you have a scout next to him, then you have a sniper, then you have 2 blank spots and an infantry unit. It would take 3 seconds to instantly see where your forces are. You would concentrate only on how to use your assets and not trying to remember where they are. Your battle plan would be so much better, and the feeling of playing a battle would be also very more pleasant. Now it's not that comfortable, it's not convenient at all. Maybe, if not a block game, using some standees would be an answer to the problem. You can use standees, plant your cards and keep them upright and not flat on the surface. That would work a lot better. Finally, what might be problematic in Scope Stalingrad is the fact that we do have a lot of randomness in this game. You can make the best decisions based on the situation. You can bluff your opponent, you can guess what your opponent does, but then it all comes to having some luck or being unlucky. Because if your opponent shoots at you with a 25% probability of hitting your sniper and he hits, and after unveiling your second sniper, or rather after shooting with your second sniper, your opponent again has a 25% of success and he again manages to kill your sniper at his first shot, he was just lucky. And unfortunately, such situations will occur, and will occur very often. In this game, even the best planning won't mean that you will that you will mean that you will won the majority of games. Sometimes your opponent, just trying his luck, will obtain a lot of success, and this can be problematic. Fortunately, the game is extremely quick to play, so even if such a situation occurs, you can very quickly restart the game, place your units once more and replay a battle. It's not that problematic. It's not a thing which will make the game totally broken, but it is still a factor that you should take into consideration when deciding if this game suits you. This game is interesting because it is a very quick war game. It is also a game which has some additional potential. The fact that all the units work in a different way will require a different strategy of using those cards. You cannot just use only your sharpshooter and the move action. Of course you can, but it won't give you such a big pleasure as using all your assets, moving them, using your scouts, trying to infiltrate enemy units using your infantry. This all makes the game quite a unique experience and also give you a lot of fun. So if you do not have a problem with a certain amount of randomness during play, and if you manage to cope with the fact that this game is so uncomfortable in its physical aspect, in the way how you manage your cards, you might still enjoy it. If you're looking for a very short, interesting war game, Scope Stalingrad might be an interesting choice. This was the review of Scope Stalingrad released by Draco Ideas. Thank you a lot for watching this video. I invite you also to take a look at our other videos. Take also a look at our Facebook and Instagram accounts. Have a terrific day and see you next time.